Hello, and welcome to what is episode 5 of Entrepreneur Essentials, in what I'm hoping is going to become a little bit more of a frequent podcast. I am going to try and have it now on a weekly basis. And to ensure that I stand to that commitment, I have added a little bit of extra pressure to myself and become sponsored. So you're now listening to an officially sponsored podcast, which I have to admit is something I'm incredibly proud of having achieved. I thought it'd be something that might happen down the line. So to get it so early out the doors, I am incredibly proud of myself for achieving that. And that was exactly the reason I did it. I figured if I'm going to actually commit to doing a podcast in a more frequent basis, I'm going to need an incentive to do so. So therefore, I'm going to commit to a sponsorship deal, which means I have to deliver content, because if I don't, I'm going to have sponsors breathing down my neck going, hey, man, we had an agreement and you're not standing up to it. And for me, that'll work great. I will do the stuff that needs done. If it's not needing done, if there's nobody going to check tomorrow if it was done today, it'll not get done today, it'll get done tomorrow. That is just always how I operate. Do the important, time critical things today. The stuff that's not time critical, we'll get to it. Which means when it's something that I'm running and I'm the one that's checking up on it, I'll cut myself far too much slack at times. I have placed one or two small orders with them so far, and just tonight before I started recording this content, I went on, played about, clicked two random buttons, and found an item going, hey, I'm buying that. And really bloody great difficulty importing it in out of Spain. And there it's there, click a button and I can have it in 3 days' time. And I'm like, couldn't get an order completed in 3 days with my current supplier for that stuff. So they have wonderful opportunities. We'll go into that a little bit later. What I want to kick off this podcast with is the fact that it is now the 9th of June. And this week, every year for the last couple of recent years, always seems of some level of significance for me. And I think it's just coincidence. And it was only just over the weekend I put the pattern together. So this day last year, I climbed Carrauntoohil, which is the largest mountain on the island of Ireland. The couple of hours prior to that, I climbed Slieve Donard, which is the largest mountain in the north of Ireland. A couple of hours prior to that again, I climbed Ben Nevis, and it was incredible. When we got to the top of Ben Nevis, there was about 11 inches of snow at the top. It was blizzard conditions in June. Yes, I have the photographs if anybody wants to call me out on that. And the guide on the way back down was saying, a level with you, I didn't intend taking you to the top when we were leaving the car park. He said, I figured we would go as far up as we could, and then I would tell you so I wasn't taking you any further. And we just had a really nice, calm window of winds, and we made it to the top. Before that, I did Scarfell Pike, and can't remember the other one, but we did the top 5 highest peaks in England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and Northern Ireland. So that's what I did this time last year. Year prior to that, I was looking back, it wasn't that much, I was polishing cars. The year prior to that, which would be 2023, I have tons of videos in my camera reel of me doing building work on my new warehouse. So I was knocking down existing walls in the yard, doing groundworks, laying stuff out, a lot of work there. 4 years ago, myself, Lloyd Jones, Luke Filer, and Liam Surrey, Liam, I'm saying your name right, I can never say your surname properly, were in Liverpool for a team building and development weekend, whereby we were looking at some of the values and what we were trying to achieve within iGen. And at the time, I was an employee. Now I'm the owner. So it's amazing how things have changed there in a 4-year period. 5 years ago, I've got videos of me hiking in the local mountains with my now wife. And 7 years ago, I have some really lovely photographs of me in London. So I was in London, I've got lovely photographs of the West End. I went and seen The Lion King. But the real reason I was there was to do a job interview. Job interview was to go and be a governor in a private residence in Kazakhstan. And it was the most bizarre job interview I've ever done. Literally get interviewed on a street corner outside the theatre for The Lion King. Hence why I bought a ticket, because I wasn't quite sure where I was meant to be, so I wanted to gain access to the building, so I bought a ticket. Glad that interview didn't come to pass. What followed was a really brilliant night out in London, and I'll leave the details at that. Followed by a night out in Dublin a couple of weeks later, where I met up with the same people that I'd met. From that night out, I got sick. Nothing very serious. I think I just got like a chest infection or something, but it spread to my sinuses and led to me getting really severe headaches. Doctors baffled as to what it was, but I was like blinded by the pains and headaches, really sensitive to sunlight. And at that stage, I had teed up another job to start in Saudi in the last week of August. And in the weeks leading up to it, like I couldn't get out of bed. I was racked with pains. I was taking painkillers every 2 hours. I was seeing consultants. They were creating brain tumors, the whole works, and couldn't figure out anything. So they end up, I couldn't go take the job in Saudi. I took a job in a local school, which I didn't really want to take. I figured, right, I'll take it from September to Christmas. At this stage, I was still doing Amazon, but it wasn't at anywhere near the level I am now. And my notion was I can run it remotely from Saudi, get my family or local people to do the prep. I'll still do the buying, be sweet. That would never have worked. And yeah, second day in the job, I met my now wife. A week later, I was skipping hospital appointments so that I could go on dates with her. And I find it very serendipitous, I believe is the correct word, to see how things have come out from a series of seemingly random events. And there are those that could argue, but those events are still random. You're just choosing to see the meaning in between them. And perhaps that is the case, but I very much believe that that day in London started a series of events that has led to where I am today. Because once I decided that I wasn't going to move abroad, I started focusing very much my attentions on being at home. Um, the local teaching job, yeah, I was enjoying it, but it wasn't what I wanted to really be doing. And when it came to the end, so it was a 3 month contract from September to December, and 4 months. And when it came to an end, I decided I wasn't going to look for employment elsewhere. I was going to go full time at Amazon. And that's what I did. And then COVID hit and world of entertainment after that. But that is the series of events. So I'm sitting looking at this week going, I wonder what this week's going to hold. And I know within my own business, I know within cash flows, within profitability, where we've come over the last couple of years, having spoken to my accountant last week, that this week is going to be a turning point simply because between now and this day next week, we have 20 pallets of stock going out the door. And I know that is going to have a significant boost in turnover, revenue, and profitability. And that is going to really kickstart what will be a snowball effect from now on to Q4. So something about the second week of June just seems to really impact my life. And yeah, I'm all for that because last week I was sick, so anything's better than that. Guys and girls, I did write out a couple of points that I wanted to speak about in this podcast. It's really hard, or at least I'm finding it a little bit hard, to come on and try and speak that is not just incoherent ramblings, that is actually something that's going to provide value to the listeners, that is going to want you to engage, follow me, listen to me, subscribe, do all those wonderful things that I should be asking you to do. So I've wrote a couple of bullet points, and the first one that I want to start with is the amount of stuff I'm seeing on social media about here's how you start Amazon. And they're all the same. Grab your phone, run around Tesco's, scan a few items, and you're great. And this is how you set up a business that earned me £700 in 2 hours. Nonsense. Utter nonsense. Yes, it's how you start. Your first couple of days out the door, okay, you might seem to have good big ROIs and good sort of profitability purchases because you bugger all overheads. You're not running a business yet. You have no staff. You might have a couple of pieces of software. I checked it out today. Seller Central, SaaS, and Keepa, you're out the door at about 65 quid can get you started on that. So setup costs is £65 to get you going, and you're off to the races. But it's not a business; it's a side hustle, and you will get side hustle results. And when you have very little expenses, when you're not paying an accountant, when you're not paying utilities or anything like that, there you will seem to have brilliant profits. But you've got to realize that once you do over 15 grand turnover in Amazon, Amazon's going to put a hand on your shoulder and go, "Hey, can you prove you've told HMRC that you're doing this?" So for anybody that wasn't declaring the income, that is maybe claiming benefits, that is doing anything questionable that HMRC may not be overly happy with, at that point, that yeah, you have to go legitimate from that point out. It's not cash sales on Facebook Marketplace where nobody knows what you're doing. It's not standing on a car boot sale where you're selling stuff cash in hand. HMRC knows every penny you're moving online. Believe me. So all those videos of here's how you start, here's how you do this, great. But realize that that is only the start. That is not the business. That is not scalable. That is not where you want to continue to be your end up. That is the very much a start to get your toe wet to see if it's something that you want to do. And only about 10 minutes before starting to record this, I was flicking through TikTok again to try and get a little bit of inspiration for this. And I came across a video from an Irish content producer from Cork, nothing to do with Amazon. And she said a quote that I've heard before, but it really reminded me of it. And it's that consistency without expectation is what leads to success. So if you are starting Amazon and you're going around Tesco's and your notion is, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be in Dubai by Christmas with a Lambo with millions of quid in the bank, you're starting it for the wrong reasons and it will not last. There will be lots of times when starting a business that it will get bloody hard and the money you're making is not worth what you're having to put in. But it is not about the money you're making today. It is the potential of the money you can make 5, 10, 20 years down the line. And that is what most people can't get behind. So I know there's people out there that will run agencies and be like, that's nonsense, make the money today, flip it, sell it, exit. You do you. But I am building a retail business that has infrastructure, that has supplier relationships, that has sustainable products that we can build a strong foundation on. Didn't start out that way. When I started out doing retail arbitrage, I was running around, if there was a margin on it, I was like, hey, profit's profit. And it wasn't, because it was opportunity cost, because I was putting money into something with a low yield. There was greater risk of things that were short dated or seasonal or listings becoming saturated. I wasn't paying any attention to that. I was just going, I can buy it for £5, sell it for £10, I'll make £1 profit. Hey, 20%, let's go. No, you have to look at the bigger picture. But it got me where I am now. I'm starting out, going out all over again. I don't regret any of the single actions I took. Starting out again, I think there's a few steps I would skip now. I've learned those lessons. I don't need to go through the pain and suffering of learning them again. But they were very necessary at the time. Just don't get suckered in to the people that tell you that running around doing RA is the same as doing wholesale, that it's a scalable business, that it's passive income, that it's going to change your life. It is the potential to be the gatekeeper, sorry, not the gatekeeper, the access point, the starting point of something that could be fundamental in changing your life. It on its own is not. I touched there on HMRC now starting to crack down a lot more on online retailers. And I've seen a couple of posts go out about this and people getting nervous, for want of a better word. It's not something that I think is going to be that big of an issue. Once you've done over 15,000 in revenue on Amazon, it's very simple. Either you want to be doing it and you're going to continue to do it, or it's not for you and you're going to pack it in anyway. What HMRC is trying to do is to crack down on really big sellers that are hiding in the shadows, pretending to be small fish. That is what they're after. The sort of people that have done 2,000 or 3,000 turnover on eBay when they were clearing stuff out of their spare bedroom, they're not interested in you. they don't really have the manpower, the capacity to start really chasing you after it. But it's the really big sellers that are pretending to be small or individual sellers. That's who they want to talk to. So, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of noise on TikTok from people that are saying, run around Tesco's, that's how you become an Amazon seller, and that is a business. Great starting point. It is not where you want to end up. Um, there will be those that will, question the ethical side of that. I don't give that any credence. Amazon, sorry, not Amazon, retail by its own sort of situation is you're buying and selling it at a higher margin. Just because you're buying it in the clearance section does not make it unethical by any means. Trying to look at some of the other points. So one of the things I was looking at was everything now I'm seeing on social media. They're talking about this software is running AI, or this is AI and that's AI. And you need to be using AI or you're going to get left behind. And AI is definitely the future. It's a buzzword. And most of it isn't artificial intelligence. Most of it, ChatGPT, you can train to learn your style. It can be fed information and it can make better results based on the information that you're providing to it. That is some level of artificial intelligence. It is some level of learning. If you have got a repricer where you're saying when it reaches 10% do X, that is not artificial intelligence. That is a very basic formula. And don't get suckered into people saying, hey, our repricer, which has been on the market 5 years and hasn't changed one bit, is suddenly full of artificial intelligence. Because the only artificial intelligence there is the owners. Um, there is going to be a lot of software coming out, and there is a lot of different automated tools that can help you run your business. Sourcing, I would question. Now, I should sort of preface that by saying we run a deal service where we use AI to identify purchasing opportunities for leads, but it's very simple on how the process works. I couldn't do it myself, but the process is you have a computer bot that is checking the prices at all times on Amazon. There's a couple of different ways. It's checking the price in France and it's checking the price in the UK. Once it notices a percentage difference, so once it becomes a threshold of, hey, the price in France is 30% that of the price in the UK, then it meets the requirements and it flags that lead. But it is all time just searching them databases and trying to find those cross compatibilities. Same thing for an Amazon flip in the UK. So it's gone through and it finds a Karcher power washer is £500 and suddenly Amazon's selling it for £300. They're going, hey, that's a 40% drop. There's potential for a lead there and it flags that. There's nothing intelligent about that. It is simple mathematical equations built into a software to continuously run on them platforms until it identifies a lead. That sort of stuff is going to get more sophisticated with automations, whereby you can set up things on the likes of Airtable, which I've never used but seen a lot of videos on it, where they run automated processes where, like, once X equals Y, send this email. If a person clicks on this button, send this email followed by this, this, and this. So it's all automated, so things can become a lot faster. That stuff is going to become a lot more prevalent. Using generated graphics, i.e., fake reels where the people in it aren't real, they're just animations but look hyper realistic. That sort of stuff's going to increase. It's going to become a lot more convincing. Like, I watched a video earlier that was meant to be of Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic, and you could just tell by the movements of the body and the color tones on the faces that it wasn't real. Give it 5 years and you're going to really struggle with that. Hell, give it 5 years and this podcast is probably going to be just run from a voice software that sounds like me because it's listened to that many recordings. It is never going to replace proper sourcing, proper wholesale and supplier relationships, the the sharpness and the wherewithal required to run a business, the tenacity of going, right, here's all the different options, but this is what we're going to do first because of the chain reactions after that event. That is something that I don't see AI is ever going to replace. It should point out as well that once you become overly reliant on that, things become very generic and just shite. I've seen a lot of listings that have been created by AI images and then ChatGPT writing the product descriptions. And maybe it's me, maybe I'm a wee bit more sharper on it, but I don't think I'm that special. I think it's just that the listings themselves scream, I was not written by a human being because this does not read like anybody would write. Yeah, it'll get better, but right now I think what it is doing is actually diminishing the quality of listings on Amazon, the sourcing capability of people that are trying to sell on Amazon, and just in a lot of different ways, it is making us as a society a lot more dependent on elements of technology that aren't real and dumbing us down. And by that, I mean, I watched a video on Facebook yesterday. Meta AI will now give you prompts where you can ask questions. Questions were not at all relevant to the actual video. And when you're actually asking something, I'm like, I don't know, maybe you should message the person that made the video. I'm like, why am I speaking to a computer that's offering me answers to a question that doesn't know the answer to? And it's just nonsense. And there's so much of that within AI. You're seeing it a lot more coming in within business now because businesses want to scream, we're using AI, we're doing this. Good for you, but if it wasn't broke, why are you trying to fix it? Over the last couple of months, I have had my fair share of challenges on the Amazon platform with intellectual property infringement issues. I believe in total we had just over 30. We now have 0. And it was because Amazon started using bots to identify keyword patterns for brands within both the titles, bullet points, and images that it was identifying. So if you had the word Huggies in a title, it would flag it and go, hey, you don't own the intellectual property to use the word Huggies. Please provide a letter of authorization or edit the listing. So you go to edit the listing, you remove the word Huggies out of the title, you remove the word Huggies out of the image, and then Amazon goes, sorry, you've modified this listing too much. It's no longer represent the original listing. Please delete it, close it, start again. Incredibly frustrating, but that is the world of Amazon. And I can see that becoming more of a thing. I could imagine in a couple of months Amazon are going to relax on it somewhat, but the days of lazy, generic, throw it up with a generic title and a couple of stock images and hope for the best are gone on Amazon because Amazon want to make sure that the customer experience is bang on point, and they don't want Huggies, McVitie's, Nestle, or Mars suing them. So if you can't provide all the documentation to say, hey, I have full permission to sell on this brand, you're not going to be doing it. So what is the solution? How do you get around that? What are we going to do? It's very simple. You make sure your listing is compliant, or you make sure that you're not making reference to those brands in your title, images, or bullet points. So if you don't have a letter of authority from McVitie's, which I would imagine most don't, well, then you can't say McVitie's digestive biscuits in the title if you were making such a listing. It does mean you're going to have to become a little bit more creative with listings that are being made. And it does mean that you're going to have to just put a little bit more effort into it. It will add a lot more legitimacy to your business. I think looking over the last couple of years, things have gone. There's been a natural progression where there was a lot of people when I started in Amazon were doing retail arbitrage. Then OA became the next big thing because, well, it was scalable. You could hire virtual assistants, you could put repricing things in place, you could grow the business very quickly on low margins and grow it up. Then wholesale became the way to go to get access to volumes without having to need an army of staff and to get access to new stock and suppliers. Now I see it a lot more where people are doing the same thing, but they're creating their own listings. The notion of creating your own listing and adding a gift card, though, lads, cop on. You're better than that. Don't be at that nonsense. Um, what's next? Realistically, what I see next is people will become a lot more focused on a specific niche, that they will become hyper focused on certain areas or categories, try and build a real strong connection with the brand and become a brand representative on Amazon, pretty much to the point where they are, an employee for the brand more than anything. And from there, then they will have all the paperwork. So all the paperwork issues that Amazon are pushing towards you will be dealt with. However, Amazon are very much these days pushing for competitive pricing. At the minute, I'm arguing with Amazon to come away from the fact that they want me to price match with items in Sainsbury's. My argument is hey, elements of the offering I have are not available in what's available in Sainsbury's. And once you factor in the £7 delivery charge that Sainsbury's are charging, my item still provides better value next day delivery on Amazon. But it's trying to convince the correct department to see that. TikTok. TikTok is everywhere, and TikTok is the bane of my life because it is full of inaccurate information by people that started last Tuesday who think they are the bee's knees, and it's cringeworthy to watch. And what's frustrating and angering is the fact that so many people are getting suckered in because they're charismatic, a lot more so than I am, I would say. They are entertaining. They have hours every day to do Q&A sessions, videos, reels, TikToks. And where are you getting the time for this? If you were running the business to the level that you say you're doing, how have you the time for this? And the truth is, they're not. They're not doing any of what they say they're doing. Most of them. But TikTok seen a case tonight, 24 Mars bars for only $9.99. By the time you click into it and click the 24 pack instead of the 12 pack, and by the time you add in postage, it's coming to $18.39, which divided by a 24 pack bar comes to 72p a bar. Now, they're a bit over £1 a piece in Tesco's for the same bar. So, yeah, you are making a saving. But there was 17 quid next day delivery on Amazon. Now, people don't always go to shop around. They go by marketing and what's in front of them. And people will like the doom scroll on TikTok. And TikTok shop is very effective. I'm aware of that. However, when TikTok started during COVID, it was very much a look at this funny dance, look at this funny video, look at this great content. And then successful content creators were doing hashtag gifted, hashtag ads. Now, every second video on that platform is, commission, please check the yellow box. And I can't see that being sustainable. It is everybody and their dog is trying to jump on the affiliates, and some will succeed. Like within any business, there'll be some will succeed. 95%, I'd say, will die out of it within 3 to 4 months. And it is only sustainable if you can develop a personal brand. So within Amazon, you can build a business, you can build a brand. You can do none of that, and you can just buy wholesale and flip it over and get teams into place and manage it. Develop relationships with suppliers, establish listings, build up a business and sell that as an entity. Within the world of TikTok and doing all that, yes, you can have faceless accounts where it's, look at my hand, look at my hand, look at this. If you really want to be successful on the TikTok platform, you need to have a personal brand, which means they need to buy into you, which, if you can do it really well, is incredibly lucrative. But for most people, it ain't going to fly. It's the equivalent of listening to a 15-year-old kid say they're going to be the next Premier League footballer. One in every couple of thousand of them is probably telling the truth. The rest of them, unfortunately, are just going to be disappointed. And that is the exact same as what I can see happening with TikTok affiliates. They'll make a couple of quids and it'll not pay the bills. That's simple. And unfortunately, the same does happen within the realms of Amazon. But within Amazon, you're not trying to sell yourself as a person, as an entity, as a personality. You can take a tin of beans, put a margin on it, and sell it, and it will sell. It's that simple. Now, economies of scale come in, and the biggest failure point that I see people making within Amazon is that they come in, they start with £1,000, 300 quid goes in overheads, they take £200 out because I want my money. They're left with £500 a month later, a couple of months down the line, they've no money. They're like, well, what happened? It was like, well, your operating costs were a massive percentage of your overall liquid capital, and you didn't factor that in your ability to grow. So you needed to either A, added in more capital, or B, maybe not put everything through as an expense from day one. And it's hard to articulate that to people because once they see sales coming in, they want to reap the rewards of it. And sometimes you do have to have the delayed gratification if you want the real benefits of running a business. So I did have another couple of talking points, but I'm conscious of time and I'm conscious of how long I want to run these episodes. One of the big things I see new sellers really struggling with when they come to start selling on Amazon and they want to move into wholesale is plain and simply they can't afford the minimum orders from wholesalers. So I approached a new wholesaler this week and I was like, cool, thank you, great pricing, everything's looking wonderful. Um, Quick question: what's your MOV? What's your minimum order value? And I'm like €20,000 X works from Bucharest, Romania, which means you have to place an order of 20 grand before we'll entertain an order, and then you have to organise to collect it yourself from Romania. So X works is quite standard within wholesaling. 20 grand minimum order is a bit on the steep side, and it prices out a lot of small sellers because they don't have the capacity to either A, purchase that amount, or B, move that amount, even if they had the stock. Does Amazon accept the invoices? Now, Amazon doesn't reject an invoice because of where it's from. Now, depending on what you're trying to use that invoice for. So, by most points, if you're trying to prove authenticity of the product, and here's the thing: when I first started out trying to place wholesale orders, I'll not say who the supplier was, but I got it into my head that every order had to be bigger than the last. Till it got to the point where I was spending 10 grand orders and buying 6 months of stock on, well, I can hold it and sell through for the next 6 months. I did not have the capital to be supporting such an attitude. And very quickly it led me to go, why have I 6 months supply of stock on something that I could get delivered within a week? There is no need for me to hold that much stock. Same with this. Why do you need to be putting in massive orders with wholesalers that you can't afford if you can put in a 300 quid order, place the order on a Monday, have it delivered by the Friday, prepping out the door within the following Monday, and you're stocked live on Amazon within a 2 to 3 week window, which means you will have a wealth of Amazon sellers utilizing it. But just like anything, it is not about when you buy it, it is about when you buy it and when you sell it. And if you're not getting both points right, then you're not going to make money. And it's the same with this platform. People go, oh, your prices aren't great, oh, it's saturated, this, that, and the other. Lad, it is what you want it to be. First item I looked at tonight, I was like, that's a bargain. I'm like, I know the price I've been previously paying for them out of Spain, and I know the effort and hassle it was taken to get them in, where I can collect that and have it delivered within 3 days. Honestly, I wish they'd have been about when I was starting out. I would have been all over that. I will have a link below this video on both Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, wherever we're sharing this video out. There'll be links to it. It'll be an affiliate link. I will get a small commission off that if you do sign up via that. Sue me. Come on. We're all here to make money. We're realistic about this. On the topic of sponsorship, the one thing that will sort of put to me that, hey, obviously we want to make sure your content is on brand related to Amazon. So while the podcast is called Entrepreneurship Essentials, I think it is going to be a while before I deviate too much from the world of Amazon. In the next week, I'm going to be pushing very much onto the side of getting stock out the door. We're sitting with a lot of stock in the door at the moment, so I want that out the door. We have got ourselves in a position where we have very little debt exposure within the business after building a warehouse and a couple of other expansions within America. So balance sheets are looking very good. Liquidity isn't all that wonderful. So we're going to be looking for financing to get a bit more liquid capital into the business to allow us to grow leading up to Q4. And on the flip side, within the coaching side of things, I want to do a big sort of push on with the amount of content we're putting out, simply because we don't talk about just how good we are enough. And I don't mean that to be in any way arrogant. I mean, we are damn good at what we deliver. Case in point, we had a client sign up to us, get hit with a letter from HMRC going, hey, you owe us a lot of money in VAT that you've calculated incorrectly. And I took their VAT bill from owing 80 grand to being owed 20 grand. It's a swing of 100,000. I'm not saying their accountant wasn't good. I'm just saying I'm better than their accountant. And that is the sort of results we can deliver for clients. We have taken people from starting on day zero without a clue to doing 10 grand turnover in their first month. And we don't brag enough about this. So we are going to start shouting from the rooftops a little bit more just how bloody good we are. Because we are. And I know that sounds so arrogant to say that, but 8 years selling, coming up on 5 years coaching, I know what I can deliver on. I know what I'm doing. I know what it takes to deliver in this game. And when you see people coming in, starting on Amazon, running a whole load of TikToks about it, going VAT registered, shit in the bed, and suddenly they're a TikTok agency, you're sitting going, is anybody going to point out that they are absolutely full of it? And I'm sitting going, well, I could sit and spout shit about them, or I could start saying, hey, I'm bloody good, come and have a conversation. So that is what's going on with me. I have to say, I've enjoyed recording this. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it. I would really appreciate it if you could like, share, follow, tell your friends to listen to it too, because now that this is sponsored, I'm pretty sure there are going to be sponsorship managers that are going to want to look at metrics to see if this is actually engaging and worth the money they're spending on sponsorship. So help me out, share this out a bit, like, follow, subscribe, do whatever you got to do. Tune in next week where I will be discussing a range of topics of which I've yet to determine. And yes, best of luck in your business. If you need anything, if I can be of help, whether that's through the realms of coaching, or if you just want to ask a quick question, or if you're stuck in something within your business, or if you're just burnt out, drop me a message. You can grab me on Instagram, you can grab me on Facebook and LinkedIn. Something I'm also trying to push a wee bit more is my exposure on LinkedIn. So still trying to find my feet in that platform. Bear with me on that one. But yeah, if it can help in any way, drop a message. Yes, we provide coaching. Yes, we have paid services, but we also provide logistics. And a lot of times I'll just send you a voice note going, do this, sharpen yourself, pull your thumb out of your backside and get on with it. And you'd be amazed how often just being told that will actually fix a problem that's not really that much of a problem, that you knew what you needed to do, but you just needed that pep talk or that little shove. Guys, girls, ladies and gents, I have massively enjoyed recording this. I will see you again next week for the 6th episode of Entrepreneur Essentials. In the meantime, best of luck to your business and don't quit.